kind of like OnlyFans, but
Your
for
time, your money, your
athletes.
fight.
All right, guys, it's Coach Care Bear. I have a special episode of Only Fighters MMA interviews. This is also going to be part of the Win the Fight podcast. So that's my podcast I have on YouTube, Spotify. Check it out. Today on the podcast, we have none other than champion, the man, the myth, the legend, Jon Fitch. All right, so I'm going to patch him in. Just give me 1 second. All right, guys, a little backstory on how I know Jon. So he's from Indiana. I believe he's from Fort Wayne. He wrestled at Purdue. He was a Boilermaker. He did a seminar up in Lafayette. I checked it out. Love the stuff he was showing. We ended up talking. He had an idea of a way to help fighters get more noticeable, get on the bigger radars for bigger shows. So we had a Zoom interview, something like this, and kind of went from there and kind of re-energized my career. Previously, I took 8 years off. I came back, won a main event, and then fought for Bellator this year in June. And yeah, so had some big fights. He has some big stuff planned. Him and Kung Lee and other fighters are part of a class action lawsuit against the UFC. So they're taking the UFC to court in April of next year. I'm looking and going out there to check that out, support them. But yeah, so he should be popping on in just a few moments.
Let's do it.
All right, guys, I'm here with Only Fighters MMA. We got Jon Fitch, the Lafayette legend. How's it going, Jon?
Doing good. Having a good Thursday.
It's a great Thursday. I'm starting a new job. I'm bumming it at Buffalo Wild Wings, you know?
All right. Just got to get it in.
Yes, sir. All right, Jon. So we've been connected for a couple of years now. I like to credit you with a resurgence in my career. Since we met, I won a main event. I fought for Bellator. I've had some big fights. Um, are you still trying to get the idea that we talked about off the ground? Are you running with that?
I had started a business with a partner that kind of flaked out, so didn't get to pursue it as much as I'd like to. I still think it's a very viable way of doing things because the social media is a huge part of notoriety and getting people known and their faces in front of people. So if you can wield that power well, you can put yourself into some pretty lucrative positions using fighting as a tool, kind of as a platform to sell your other stuff, which sucks because fighting should be enough, but it's just where we're at legally with how the sports run. You need to play the game that's in front of you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm living that firsthand. I broke a few bones in my last fight and haven't been able to fight or really do any
fight,
other
you don't make
physical
money.
labor job. Right.
Yeah,
So
you're not fighting, you're not making money, unless you do have the social media stuff figured out on some level, and you can make money off of that. That's one thing that the Shane O'Malley has done well is he took his time. He fought lesser named guys to get more wins and build his pay up, and then he built his social media presence at the same time. So he did do that pretty right. It's kind of gross that that's the way the sport is, but it's just the way it is.
yeah. I've been actually connected through you. I've been talking with Kung Lee a bunch. He's gave me some good advice, but he had a big announcement. You guys finally have a court date for your class action lawsuit, right?
Yep.
Can you tell the fans more about that?
Yeah, it'll be in April. The judge fast-tracked. We waited 3 years for a response on class certification, and we got that. UFC had a short time to appeal that, but the appeal was thrown out by the Ninth Circuit, and then the judge fast tracked to the trial in April. We're doing the trial on damages will be in April, and then the UFC their only strategy so far has been to stall, and they just stall as much as they can. So to prevent them from stalling too long, we're doing the damages trial first, and then we're going to do injunctive relief trial will be coming up later, and that will be the one that forces them to make business model changes.
Awesome. I know they just announced a big fight for their UFC 300 card. Supposedly, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler's finally happening sometime in April. I don't think they've been. Do they
Did
have a
they
date yet?
announce that? I thought I just saw something this morning that that's not happening.
No. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing with social media. You get all these fight
Yeah, you get
announcements,
mixed
quote unquote.
things and whatever. And who knows how much is real and how much is just PR from the from the company, you know?
Right.
Um Same thing. All the tricks, all the propaganda, all the news tricks that the government uses, like corporations use them too.
Right.
And UFC's ahead of a lot of stuff. They have their army of people online who post and make posts and comment on things and say that certain people suck and certain people are awesome and this fight
Right.
is great and that fight is terrible. A lot of them are just bots. A lot of stuff is not real these days.
Yeah. Um, so before we get back into all the rehashing that stuff, tell me about what you're doing now. Like, what platforms are you on? Where can people find your stuff? Like, what kind of things you have in the works?
Yeah, jonfish.net is the best place to find me, and everything links up from there. But I make a lot of posts on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on a bunch, and YouTube, and then Rockfin. I put videos up on Rockfin. YouTube doesn't like some of the stuff I talk about. It doesn't like the violent stuff. I have a learn to fight video series I was doing on there for a while, but anything with fighting or teaching people how to avoid the fights or do better in the fight situation, I don't know. I guess they don't like. So I'm moving those full time over to Rockfin. I don't get censored over there, but I do
Gotcha.
that Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I do learn to fight video. Today at 1:30, I'll do a Fitch pilled stream. And then I have my Jon Fitch Knows Nothing podcast on Sunday nights where we talk a lot about the fights that just happened. If there are low fights or no fights to watch, or I miss the fights, sometimes I'll have a guest on. Um, Other than that, and then there's the Rule Zeros. Those are on Saturday mornings. Sometimes I host, but we rotate who's hosting on what platform just to mix things up and expose more people to different guys. But we talk a lot about Rule Zero, right? Betterment for men. What's best for men? What can we do to make things better for us and strategies that work in our lives?
Right.
It's good
Awesome.
stuff.
All right. So, Coach Berg, who runs Only Fighters MMA, has some questions he wants you to kind of break down. Along with the class action lawsuit, we've heard the term sunset clause.
Mhm.
Can you break that down for the layman?
Well, the UFC has never like their contracts are extremely restrictive. They tie fighters up for long periods of time, keeping it impossible for those guys to go other places to fight. It makes it impossible for other promoters to promote themselves and build their promotions up by using the bigger name, the more ranked guys. And it's been one of the complaints for the class action lawsuit is that the contracts are binding and never ending, and it's anti-competitive in nature. So the UFC, in order to thwart another class action lawsuit, because we can do it in segments, it doesn't have to just be one. We have a second group of guys who have already filed another lawsuit in 2017. So they're back-to-back lawsuits. As long as they keep doing the same crime, we're going to keep suing them. A new group of guys will come forward and pile on. That's where the injunctive relief is so important, because it'll change how their business strategy is done, how they do their business, and they won't be able to monopolize the market the way they have. So one of the actions that they put in to thwart the next series of lawsuits was a sunset clause. So you signed the contract, and from the date of your first fight, that's when the time started on the contract, and they put in a 5-year sunset clause. So 5 years after that initial signing, you were a free agent if they didn't re-sign you, right? But they put all kinds of freezes on there anyway, though. On top of that, though, so if you get injured in that time period, they'll put a freeze on
Right.
your contract. So that sunset clause is what Francis Ngannou used to become a free agent and then get his boxing fight with Tyson Fury. If he didn't have that, he would have gotten stuck with the UFC. He'd be fighting, big names for no money.
Right.
But he exercised his rights and became a free agent and did that. The UFC ended that sunset clause, though. They or it's still in there, but they have the right to pause it more heavily and extensively. So you can't just sit out. If you're like, oh, I'm on my last fight, I got a year left, or I got 6 months left, I'm going to sit out and wait. They'll freeze you. If you're healthy and you can fight, you have to take the fight. If you dismiss the fight or say no to the fight, like your sunset clause gets extended. So they've basically eliminated what happened with Francis Ngannou, so that can never happen again.
Gotcha.
But it's a huge admission of guilt, though. The fact that they had to put it in to try to look less monopolistic, and then once they realize, oh, whoops, we're getting burnt, and these guys will actually use their name, because their name is what's valuable. Their name is what sells fights. These guys are actually seeing their value. We got to make sure that we keep them on the plantation.
Right. And that's something Coach Berg's been great with. He's helped me out like during this time that I can't fight, make any money fighting. Doing these interviews, he's giving me money for these interviews. We have what's called Coach Coin. So that's kind of basically you're a shareholder in Only Fighters. And so whenever you have a fan join at whatever rate they join at, that kind of builds into your business, basically. So you're part of the company. And so as the company does better, you do better, you get more shares, basically.
So doing a cryptocurrency.
Kind of. It's more like this base in the website. It's not really a token per se. Like you can't use it on anything, but it's kind of like basically your percent stock. Like they'll give you Coach Coin for certain activities. That kind of incentivizes you to share the brand, get people involved. So,
I got you.
Going back to the class action, like what is like your goal going forward? Like what are you in it for? Like what do you want to see happen with the class action?
I've been in the fight for a long time. From before I knew what fuckery was going on with the finances. I could tell it wasn't a sport. It wasn't operated as a sport. This is not how sports run. All sports, every single sport, it's performance based. Do you win? Do you win? And climbing the ranks, fighting for titles, fighting for championships, competing at the highest levels, getting the highest ranks is all based on wins and losses. That's it. Every sport. There's no argument of excitement in any of those sports. Okay. Excitement level will translate into sponsorships, more notoriety, bigger paydays. Yeah, that's true. But that has nothing to do with sport. I would argue that winning brings more eyeballs on you. Even if people don't like you, they want to see if somebody can beat you. So the fact that things weren't run as a sport, it was run as pro wrestling. The only thing that mattered, they were literally casting roles. Oh, we need somebody to fill this role, so let's push this guy into it. This guy's got a great story. We need a guy from Mexico. This guy's from Mexico. Let's push him and let's line him up with all the fights we can to get him good fights and wins. And it's sold like pro wrestling, no different.
Right.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like it from the beginning. Things started off okay, but then they got worse and worse. And you could tell by 2008, 2010, or 2010, that the there was nowhere to go. They owned the sport basically, and things got worse and worse. Um, so I want the sport to actually be a sport. I want it to run like a sport. I think that's the way it should be. I don't think we should have to have this clown show stuff going on, and you know it turns my stomach to watch MMA fighters be forced to act like, I don't even know what, like pro wrestlers basically.
Right.
They're all trying to be Ric Flair. They're all doing something goofy. It's not about their skill and ability and technique. It's about all the crap outside of the fight. I don't care about any of that stuff. So like I want to watch a sport. As a fan, I want to watch a real sport. If my kids get involved in the sport, I want it to be a sport and not some Hollywood bullcrap. Uh so that's why I've been fighting, and that's what I want to change it into. I want it to be an actual sport. um the money stuff, that's extra. I
Right.
was smart with the money I made, and I put it in good places, so I'm not struggling right now. I'm not the best, but I'm not where I could have been in a free market,
Right.
but I'm not bad. But there's a lot of guys who are way worse off than me, and the UFC profited illegally off of their illegal business model. So it's important that those guys receive their damages. Those guys need the money that they had stolen from them.
Right.
And
Um,
that those are the two main goals, is to change the sport so it's an actual sport. Actually, stop the exploitation of the athletes, and then get the athletes some of their money back.
right. Did you start noticing this about the time they started like selling like your likeness rights for video games, or was it
Yep.
before that?
Yeah, that's when it started like creeping up, because there was competitions. There was places to go. Other people could pay just as much. You could fight multiple times a year for different places. A lot of places would sign 1 to 3 fight contracts, so like you could be in and out, negotiate a new contract somewhere else. There's more freedom. So if the promoter was treating you bad, you could go somewhere else. And there was times when guys did. BJ Penn went and fought Rumble on the Rock because they were going to pay him more.
Right.
And because the contracts weren't as exclusive and binding, he was able to go somewhere else and fight somewhere else. So he did. You started losing that opportunity. It was probably around 2008, when I really came crashing down, because that year and 2007, before then, there was rumblings and murmurs around the video game agreement and the merchandising agreement. There was 2 different contracts going around. They were both terrible. Video game agreement was for your likeness and images forever, that they could use however they wanted to, and you would get zero money for it. No, no, no residual payments, nothing. They owned you. They owned your likeness in the video game world forever. And then the merchandising agreement was slightly better. You may make a penny or two off of like a few thousand dolls being sold, your action figures.
Yeah.
It was something horrible. And people didn't want to sign it. People weren't signing it. And it wasn't until they they fired me for not signing the contract after I fought GSP that everybody got scared and realized, oh, they'll get rid of anybody. They don't care.
Right.
Um, and that was like the big red flag. Like, okay, this is getting bad. This is going to get worse. Like if they have this much power, nobody's standing up, fighting back. There were no managers fighting back, sticking up for anybody. There was nothing. Just people looking to find a way to best jockey themselves in the new order of things so that they would be, in a good spot. But there was no like anybody fighting for the fighters or doing what was best for the fighters at all. Nothing that
Right.
was best thought for what was best for the fans either.
And so a little known fact, UFC pays fighters roughly 20% of the revenue that they make, correct? Around that?
In recent years, it's been looking like 13 to 16%.
Right.
And they had financials drop unredacted a week or two ago. John Nash has a lot of the financial stuff for combat sports. Uh, like he's probably the top guy to go to. Um, if you're looking for info on fighter pay. But they showed that Bellator and Strike Force in that time period, uh, around then, they were paying 40 to 66% of the revenue back to the athletes. And there are people saying before that that's why those businesses struggled, or that's why they sell, or that's why they were going bankrupt. But the documents show that it wasn't the fighter pay that was throwing things off. They were wasting money on travel and broadcasting stuff. It had nothing to do with the pay of the athletes. It was 100% doable. We could be living
Right.
in a world right now where the athletes are making 60% of the revenue, and the promotions would still be doing okay.
Um, what do you what do you know and what do you feel about the acquisition of Bellator by PFL? What do you think that does for the sport? Like, is it good? Is it bad?
I mean, man, it's I think it shows the um monopoly quite strong, is because like the two next biggest entities challenging the UFC are struggling. What, like one isn't viable. It has to sell to the other one. I've always had weird feelings about the PFL and WSOF. About I feel like there's UFC money tied to them somehow. I'm not sure how, but I don't know.
You fought for both
Yeah.
organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most people know you from the UFC. Tell people the success you had in those other organizations, and like, do you feel like you were kind of the top dog at 170 in those other organizations,
Yeah,
and like you just
if I never would have been moved out and pushed out of the UFC, I think I would have been a title holder there. I don't think I could have beat Hendricks in a rematch if I actually wouldn't have been injured and would ready for that fight. I think if I could have been given another shot with GSP, I thought I had a possibility of beating him. Uh, um, Robbie Lawler, any of those guys. I think when I fought, I beat or I had a draw with what's his name? Rory, he was one of
right,
the top guys over in UFC for a little bit. I think, Teron Woodley, all those guys were guys that were beatable. I could have competed with, no problem. So the time that I was out of the UFC, I think I still was one of the best welterweights out there, regardless being fighting for PFL. And that's the biggest issue is if it's a sport, guys need to be able to compete across the sport against all the guys. So if I'm title holder at WSOF, I need to be able to fight other guys to show that um, I'm the actual champ. I need to fight the other champs. I need to fight the other guys who are highly ranked, and that's just not available to us. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that without the Ali Act. We need the Ali Act to be able to make that possible. I think through the lawsuit here, we can get injunctive relief and get short terms on the contracts. If we get 9 months or 1 year on a contract, you may be able to sit out for 9 months to a year because you don't like the promoter you're with, or you think you're going to get more money from a different promotion, or you want to fight the title holder of another promotion. That makes that accessible to you. I think that might be more likely what's going to happen first. But yeah, we need like the sport needs to be open. You need to be able to compete with everybody else equally, evenly, and without restraints. And UFC puts up major restraints. Like there's absolutely zero reason why we should not be watching John Jones and Francis Ngannou fight for the heavyweight MMA championship somewhere. There's zero reason other than UFC is greedy and they don't want to share the spotlight.
right.
Like
We've seen that time and time
that
again with
steals,
like,
yeah, it steals from the athletes. Like the
right,
athletes are not employees; they're individual businesses. Why does UFC get to dictate who they get to do business with?
exactly. Yeah, we saw that with Randy and Fedor, like
Mhm.
all the cross promotions between like all the organizations that rose and died in the time that UFC bought Pride and everything. Like there were so many opportunities for them to do cross promotions, and those could have been some of the biggest fights in history.
Mhm.
But they had to share a limelight with like M1 or whatever like promotion.
Yeah, but there was plenty of great fights and fighters available for us to have those type of fights. There's really no reason for it not to happen other than the UFC says no.
Lost interwebs. All right, John, I have to hop off here. Any last kind of points you want to get across, or kind of what's Jon Fitch do to be happy these days post fighting?
Man, I like teaching. Teaching's fun. Teaching, hanging out with my kids. They're pretty great. I'm doing a lot of stuff with them as much as I can, even though I'm stuck out here in California. Um,
How
I'm
you're in
looking
San Jose still?
still in San Jose. I look every day at houses and house prices back in Fort Wayne, just thinking
Yeah,
maybe Bitcoin will hit 100,000 here around Christmas time, and then maybe I'll have a
out.
Indiana house to fall back to from time and time again.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's where I'm putting most of my time and effort in is coaching. I'm doing online coaching too. I'm trying to develop my Fitch Smash program. So I have one regular student learning that, and he's kind of doing an affiliate type thing because he's teaching. I'm teaching him. He's learning it, and he's teaching it at his school up in Fort Wayne. So
yeah,
I'm building that. I'm trying to get through the rough draft with him and anybody else who jumps in. Um, yeah.
Definitely shoot me some more info on that. There's American Top Team here in Valdosta, my hometown. They have
Mhm.
a dude, so many good athletes down here. I
Mhm.
love to start implementing some of that stuff in as soon as you kind of get that kind of uh, outlined.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's what I got now is I'm working on the outline and the rough draft stuff and I'm shooting stuff in the garage when Coach Coy has questions. But yeah, it's going along slowly. It's coming. It's I'm taking it from in here and then putting it out on paper and then getting the video. And then when we got it kind of locked in and he's understanding what's going on, I'm gonna I'm gonna take some time and like get a videographer and somebody and we'll shoot it nice and get it to look good, nice.
Right.
I think hopefully eventually the plan would be to have like an app and a website with everything.
Yeah. I'm gonna have you connect with Coach Berg with Only Fighters. He wants to connect with you, kind of give you another platform to sell those products on. He's been really great with me. I'd love to connect to you guys and help Jon Fitch.net out.
Yeah, I do that.
Awesome. All right,
Chat.
thanks for your time, John. Where can people find you on all the socials?
Jon Fitch Smash on Instagram, official Jon Fitch is the YouTube. Um, just backslash Fitch is the rock fin. Uh, JonFitch.net, DOT net on Twitter. That's most of them. That should be it, I think.
Awesome.
Go to
Thank you so much,
JonFitch.net
man.
and you should be able to find everything. Sign up for the newsletter at JonFitch.net and you'll be up to date with everything then.
Awesome. Thank you, man. You have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yep. Peace.